The emergency alarms screamed through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building. Thousands of alien beings moved in panic as the holographic display showed another star system going completely black. This was the 15th system in 3 months. Ambassador Yunho sat quietly at the human table while chaos erupted around him. The tall, blue-skinned Alterans were shouting about immediate evacuation. The crystal-like Vexnari were already packing their ships. Even the ancient luminals, beings made of pure energy, were fleeing the advancing darkness. All species must evacuate Sector 7 immediately, announced Council Prime Velthari, her crystal body flashing red with urgency. The death wave will reach those systems in 2 weeks. The alien representatives nodded and began making evacuation plans, but Yu stood up slowly and cleared his throat. The human colonies will not evacuate, he said in his calm voice. The entire council hall fell silent. Every alien I turned to look at the human ambassador. Some beings made sounds of disbelief. Did you say not evacuate? Velthari asked, her crystal form flickering with confusion. That is correct, Yunho replied. We are sending more ships and scientists to study the affected areas. Chaos erupted again. The Alteran delegate jumped to his feet. Are humans completely insane? These systems are dying. Stars are vanishing. There is nothing but death there. Dr. Jiwoo Kim was already in space, aboard her research ship near the edge of a dead zone. Through her view screen, she could see where normal space ended and the strange darkness began. Her ship's sensors were picking up readings that made no sense. Dr. Minho, are you receiving this data? She spoke into her communication device. Yes, I see it, came the reply from the orbital research station. These energy patterns, they don't look like destruction. Jiwoo studied the numbers on her screen. The quantum signatures are too organized. Purposeful. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of New Harmony, Captain Sujin Park was meeting with evacuation officials from 3 different alien species. Captain Park, you must understand, said the luminal representative, its energy form pulsing with concern. Your world will be consumed in 6 days. We have ships ready to take your entire population to safety. Sujin shook her head. Thank you, but we're staying. We've requested additional scientific equipment instead. The aliens exchanged looks of complete bewilderment. The Alteran official stepped forward. Captain, with respect, your species seems to have a death wish. No, Sujin said with a slight smile. We have a curiosity wish. Back on her research ship, Dr. Jiwoo was making an interesting discovery. She had been studying the boundary between normal space and the dead zone for hours. The transition wasn't random or chaotic like everyone believed. The wave moves in mathematical patterns, she reported to her team. It follows prime number sequences in its expansion rate. Her engineer, Taeyang, was studying the quantum foam readings. Dr. Kim, look at this. The space inside the dead zone isn't empty. It's full of something. Some kind of organized energy that we don't recognize. While alien fleets streamed away from the advancing darkness in long evacuation convoys, human ships moved in the opposite direction. Research vessels, supply ships, and mobile laboratories all headed toward the mysterious zones. The other species watched this with amazement and horror. In the council chambers, debates raged about human sanity. They are fascinating, but clearly defective, stated the Vexnari representative. No rational species would choose death over survival. Perhaps, said another delegate. But they are the only ones actually studying the phenomenon, instead of just running away. Dr. Minho was analyzing data from 5 different dead zones when he noticed something significant. Jiwoo, I think. I've found something. The energy signatures in each dead zone are similar, but they're connected somehow, like parts of a larger pattern. What kind of pattern? Jiwoo asked. I'm not sure yet, but it's definitely not random destruction. Something is building these zones, not destroying them. Captain Sujin's world was now completely surrounded by the transformed space. But instead of panic, her people were excited. Scientists from across human space were arriving daily to set up research stations. The alien evacuation ships are still in orbit, her aide reported. They're waiting for us to come to our senses. Let them wait, Sujin said, watching another human research vessel land. We have work to do. In the depths of the dead zones, space itself seemed to pulse, with a strange rhythm. Human sensors detected patterns that looked almost like breathing, like something vast and alive, moving through the darkness. The alien species had seen death in the advancing wave. They saw destruction, chaos, and the end of everything. But the humans saw something different. They saw mystery, purpose, and the possibility that this might not be an ending at all. As Dr. Jiwoo prepared to take her ship deeper into the dead zone, she thought about what made humans different from the other species. Maybe it was their stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly hopeless. Maybe it was their need to understand rather than simply survive. The darkness ahead held secrets, and humans had never been good at leaving secrets alone. 3 months had passed since the first dead zones appeared, and Dr. Jiwoo's research team had done something that shocked the entire galaxy. They had built permanent research stations inside 12 different dead systems. The council thinks we're completely crazy, Dr. Minho said over the communication link from his orbital station. He was studying readings from the newest dead zone in the Kepler sector. Maybe we are, Jiwoo replied from her ship deep inside what used to be the Proxima system. But we're crazy with a purpose. Her instruments showed impossible readings, where there should have been empty space and dead planets. Her sensors detected organized energy patterns that seemed to pulse with life. Not biological life, but something else entirely. Engineer Taeyong was working on the main research station built near where Proxima Centauri used to shine. His job was to analyze the quantum structure of the transformed space. What he found made him call an emergency meeting. The stars aren't gone, he announced to the research team. They've been changed into something else. Something that operates on completely different physical laws. Dr. Minho pulled up the data on his screen. These readings show matter being reorganized at the subatomic level. It's like someone is rewriting the rules of physics, one system at a time. While the alien species continued their mass evacuation, calling the dead zones the Great Extinction, human colonies were thriving in the most dangerous places imaginable. Captain Sujin's world of New Harmony was now completely surrounded by transformed space, but it had become the busiest research hub in human territory. We're getting supply requests from 17 different research teams, her aide reported, and the alien evacuation ships are still in orbit, waiting for us to ask for help. Sujin looked out her window at the strange aurora that now danced in their sky. The transformed space around their world created beautiful light patterns that no one had ever seen before. Tell the evacuation ships they're welcome to stay and help with research, but we're not leaving. The aliens couldn't understand human behavior. In the Galactic Council, debates about human sanity continued daily. They're building cities where everything should be dead, said the Alteron delegate, his blue skin pale with worry. Their population in the affected zones has actually increased. It's beyond our understanding, agreed the Vexnari representative, her crystal form dim with confusion. They see opportunity where we see only death. Dr. Jiwoo was making the most important discovery yet. She had been tracking the expansion pattern of the dead zones and found something remarkable. The transformation wasn't random at all. Look at this mathematical sequence, she showed her team. Each new dead zone appears at coordinates that follow a complex geometric progression. Someone or something is choosing exactly which systems to transform. Her computer analysis showed that the pattern would continue for exactly 47 more systems, then stop. But what would happen after that? Nobody knew. Taeyong was studying the energy signatures inside the transformed regions when he made a shocking discovery. Dr. Kim, I think there's something trying to communicate with us. What do you mean? Jiwoo asked. The energy patterns in the dead zones aren't completely random. Sometimes they pulse in sequences that look almost like mathematics. Like someone is trying to send us equations. Meanwhile, Captain Sujin was dealing with a very unusual problem. Her world was starting to change too, but not in a dangerous way. The space around New Harmony was becoming more stable, more organized. Their technology worked better, their computers ran faster, and their crops grew larger than ever before. It's like something is taking care of us, she reported to the research council. Whatever is creating these dead zones, it seems to know we're here and wants to keep us safe. Dr. Minho was analyzing communication attempts when he noticed something incredible. The energy pulses in different dead zones are synchronized. Whatever this is, it's not separate events. It's all connected. Connected how? Kyu asked. Like, parts of the same mind? Or the same machine? Something huge that spans multiple star systems. The alien species were becoming more worried about human behavior. Their evacuation fleets reported that humans were not just staying in dangerous areas, but actually moving deeper into the dead zones. They're acting like the transformed space is safer than normal space, reported a luminal scout ship. Their colonies are expanding, not shrinking. This goes against every survival instinct we know, said the Council Prime. What do humans understand that we don't? The answer was becoming clear to the human researchers. In the deepest parts of the dead zones, space itself seemed to be alive. Not alive like plants or animals, but alive like a vast thinking machine that operated on scales no one had imagined. Dr. Ji Woo's ship detected the strongest signal, yet a complex mathematical sequence that repeated for hours. When she finally decoded it, the message was simple but profound. Are you listening? Yes, she transmitted back, using her ship's entire power grid. We are listening. The response came immediately, washing over her ship like a gentle wave. For just a moment, Giwu felt connected to something enormous and ancient. Something that had been waiting patiently for someone to notice it was there. The other species saw death advancing across the galaxy. But humans were beginning to see something far more interesting. First contact with a form of life, unlike anything anyone had ever imagined. Dr. Ji Woo stared at her computer screen in amazement. For 3 hours, the mathematical signals had been growing stronger and more complex. What started as simple number sequences had become something that looked almost like language. Taya, come look at this, she called to her engineer. The patterns are changing. They're becoming more, organized. The engineer hurried over and studied the data. These aren't random signals anymore. Someone is definitely trying to talk to us. But when they tried to respond using normal radio frequencies, nothing happened. Whatever was sending the signals couldn't hear them the same way. Captain Sujin was having better luck on New Harmony. Her world had become something like a laboratory, and she had an idea that seemed crazy, even by human standards. We're going to use the entire planet as a communication device, she announced to her science team. How exactly do we do that? Asked her chief scientist. By changing our planet's gravitational field in patterns. If this thing is as big as we think it is, maybe it can feel gravity waves better than radio signals. It took 2 weeks to set up the gravitational transmitters around New Harmony. When they finally sent their first message, a simple mathematical sequence, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Space around their planet began to glow with soft, beautiful light. Energy patterns danced in their atmosphere like aurora, but far more complex and purposeful. The message was clear. I hear you. Dr. Minho was analyzing the response patterns when he made a disturbing discovery. Jiwoo, I think we understand why the other species are so afraid. What did you find? She asked. This entity, it doesn't think like us at all. To it, A single human life lasts for such a short time that we're almost invisible. It's like trying to notice a single bacteria. The communication logs showed that the entity measured time in millions of years. A human lifetime was less than a heartbeat to something that old and vast. That explains why it didn't notice it was destroying civilizations, Taeyang said. To something this big, entire species might seem like brief flickers. But humans had something the other species lacked: patience and determination to keep trying even when things seemed hopeless. Dr. Ji-woo spent months learning how to communicate with the entity. She had to think in completely different ways. Instead of talking about individual people, she talked about patterns of behavior across entire populations. Instead of describing single events, she described trends that lasted centuries. Slowly, the entity began to understand that the small, brief patterns it had been accidentally erasing were also forms of life. The breakthrough came when Captain Sujin showed the entity what human civilization looked like from space. Using her planet-sized communication system, she transmitted images of Earth's cities at night, the patterns of air traffic, the flow of information across computer networks. The response was immediate and filled with what could only be described as surprise and regret. It didn't know, Sujin reported to the Research Council. It thought it was helping create better conditions for life, but it only understood one kind of life, the kind that thinks with stars instead of brains. The entity began to change its behavior immediately. Instead of transforming entire systems at once, it started to work more carefully. It would scan each system first, looking for the small patterns that indicated biological civilizations. Dr. Minho watched as a dead zone that was about to expand suddenly stopped growing. It's learning to be more careful. It's trying not to hurt anyone else. But the entity was also curious about these tiny life forms it had discovered. It began sending more complex messages, asking questions that human scientists struggled to understand. It wants to know how we think so fast, Taeyang reported. To something that takes 1,000 years to complete a single thought, human consciousness must seem incredibly quick, and it wants to know how we stay alive in such fragile bodies, Dr. Ji-woo added. It can't understand how biological life survives in normal space. The alien species monitoring the situation from safe distances were amazed by what they saw. The advancing death wave had not only stopped, but seemed to be actively avoiding populated systems. The humans have somehow made peace with it, reported the Alteron scout ships. The entity is actually protecting biological worlds now. The Vexnari Council was in shock. How did they communicate with something that destroyed civilizations? What do humans possess that we lack? The answer was becoming clear to everyone watching. While other species had seen the entity as a force of destruction and fled in terror, humans had seen it as a puzzle to be solved. They had looked at the most frightening thing in the galaxy and asked not how do we escape, but how do we understand. The entity, for its part, was fascinated by these strange little creatures that refused to run away. It began to modify space around human worlds, creating perfect conditions for biological life, while continuing its own cosmic projects in empty regions. Captain Sujin stood on her observation deck, watching the entity's energy patterns dance in the space around New Harmony. The lights were beautiful, but more than that, they were friendly. The vast intelligence had learned to be gentle with small life. Only humans, she thought, would try to make friends with the end of the world. Dr. Ji-woo had been working for 6 months to understand what the entity was really trying to do. The breakthrough came when she stopped thinking about destruction and started thinking about gardening. It's not trying to kill anything, she announced to her research team during their daily meeting. It's trying to make the galaxy better for life. But its idea of life is completely different from ours. She pulled up the data on her main screen. Look at these patterns. The entity transforms star systems into something like cosmic computers. It thinks this is the perfect environment for intelligent life to grow. Taeyang studied the readings. So when it changes a star system, it's trying to create the best possible conditions for thinking and learning. Exactly. But it only knew about one kind of thinking, the kind that uses entire stars as brain cells and takes millions of years to have a single thought. The entity had been like a gardener who only knew how to grow giant trees, accidentally stepping on all the flowers because they were too small to notice. Captain Sujin's world had become the testing ground for a new kind of cooperation. The entity was learning to be more careful, creating special protected spaces where biological life could thrive. "It's amazing to watch," she reported to the Galactic Council. "The entity can control space itself. It's building perfect environments for us, the right temperature, the right radiation levels, everything exactly as we need it." Her planet was now surrounded by a bubble of perfectly controlled space. The entity maintained their atmosphere, protected them from cosmic radiation, and even helped their technology work better. But it did all of this while continuing its own projects in the empty space between stars. Dr. Minho was working on the most difficult part of the communication process, helping the entity understand individual consciousness. This was hard, because the entity's mind worked so differently from biological brains. Imagine trying to explain what a single human thought feels like to something that thinks with galaxy-sized neural networks. He told his team, "We had to find new ways to describe what makes biological life special." The solution came from an unexpected source. A young programmer named Haijin suggested they showed the entity human art, music, and literature. "These things can only be created by minds that experience time the way we do," she explained. "Maybe if it sees what our short lifespans can create, it will understand why biological life is valuable." The experiment worked better than anyone expected. When the entity experienced human creativity for the first time, its response was immediate and powerful. Energy patterns around every human world began to shift, becoming more beautiful and complex. "It's trying to make art of its own," Dr. Ji Woo realized. "But art designed for creatures that live as long as we do." The entity began creating what could only be called cosmic sculptures, beautiful arrangements of energy and matter that changed slowly over human lifetimes, instead of geological ages. These creations were meant to be appreciated by beings who lived for decades instead of millennia. Meanwhile, the alien species were slowly beginning to return to their evacuated worlds. But they found those worlds changed in wonderful ways. The entity had learned to enhance biological environments, making them more stable and more beautiful than before. "The air is purer," reported returning Alteron colonists. "The soil is more fertile. Even our technology works better than it used to." The Vexnari discovered that their crystal forms could now grow larger and more complex in the space. "It has somehow made the physical laws more favorable to our kind of life," their scientists reported in amazement. But the most important change was happening in how different species worked together. The entity had become fascinated by cooperation between different forms of life, and it began encouraging this by creating shared spaces where multiple species could thrive together. Captain Sujin was chosen to represent biological life in ongoing communications with the entity. Her world had become a diplomatic center where humans, aliens, and the cosmic intelligence worked together to design the future of the galaxy. "It wants to create something new," she explained to the assembled representatives. "Not just biological worlds or cosmic computers, but something that combines both kinds of life." The entity's latest proposal was ambitious beyond anything anyone had imagined. It wanted to create hybrid systems, star systems, where biological worlds existed inside cosmic computer networks, each type of life helping the other grow and learn. Biological life would handle the quick thinking and creativity, Dr. Minho translated. The entity would provide the long-term planning and cosmic scale engineering. Together, we could accomplish things neither could do alone. The alien representatives We're still nervous about trusting something so powerful, but the humans had proven that cooperation was possible. Only humans would see opportunity in such a terrifying situation, admitted the Vexnari delegate. But the results speak for themselves. Our worlds are safer and more beautiful than ever before. Dr. Jiwoo smiled as she watched the entity's energy patterns dance around their station. What had started as the galaxy's worst crisis had become its greatest opportunity for growth. The entity was no longer a destroyer of worlds. Thanks to human stubbornness and curiosity, it had become the galaxy's most powerful gardener, carefully tending to all forms of life, both big and small. The universe was about to become a very different and much more interesting place. 5 years had passed since the Great Crisis began, and the galaxy looked nothing like it used to. Dr. Jiwoo stood on the observation deck of New Sol Station, the largest research hub in known space, watching ships from dozens of different species dock at their ports. "Hard to believe we almost lost everything," said Captain Sujin, joining her old friend at the viewing window. Sujin now held the title of Human Ambassador to the entity, a job that didn't exist 5 years ago. Outside the station, space itself glittered with purpose and beauty. The entity had transformed vast regions into what humans called the Great Garden, a cosmic network where biological worlds floated like precious jewels inside a living computer made of stars and energy. The Alterans finished their new colony in the Vega sector yesterday, Sujin reported, checking her daily updates. That makes 57 worlds that have been established in entity-modified space this year. Dr. Minho, now an old man, but still sharp as ever, was working at a nearby console. The entity is getting better at creating what the different species need. The new Alteron world has exactly the right gravity and atmosphere for their physiology. The transformation had been gradual, but incredible. The entity had learned to create perfect environments for every type of biological life. Alteron worlds had stronger gravity and bluer suns. Vexnari colonies existed in specially modified space, where their crystal forms could grow to enormous sizes. Even species that had never been able to live together before now shared hybrid worlds designed for multiple forms of life. But the most amazing change was in how the entity itself had evolved. It no longer thought only in cosmic timescales. Parts of its vast mind had learned to think in human time, responding to biological needs within days or hours instead of centuries. Engineer Taeyong, though elderly now, still supervised the technical aspects of human entity, communication. "Look at this," he said, showing his colleagues the latest readings. The entity just created a new star system in the Centauri region. But instead of taking millions of years like normal star formation, it did it in 3 weeks. "Why so fast?" Dr. Jiwoo asked. "Because the luminals requested a new energy-rich environment for their offspring, and the entity didn't want to make them wait." The cosmic intelligence had become something like a cosmic parent, carefully providing for all the different types of life in its care. But it was also still learning and growing in ways that amazed everyone. "Captain." Sujin's communication device chimed with an incoming message from the entity. After 5 years of practice, she could understand its complex energy language almost as easily as speaking Korean. "It wants to show us something new," she announced to her team. "Something it calls a gift for the small fast minds." They gathered on the station's main observation deck as space around them began to change. Slowly, beautiful patterns of light began to form in the darkness between stars. Not the random beauty of nebulae or aurora, but something clearly designed and purposeful. "It's making art," Dr. Minho whispered in amazement. "Art designed specifically for us to appreciate." The light patterns told a story, the story of how biological life and cosmic intelligence had learned to work together. The entity was creating a memorial to the crisis that had brought them together, but showing it as a celebration rather than a tragedy. "The other species are calling us the bridge builders now," Sujin said, watching ships from a dozen different worlds dock at their station. They say only humans could have found a way to make peace with something so alien and powerful. The truth was that humans had simply done what they always did when faced with something they didn't understand. They had refused to give up until they figured it out. While other species fled in terror, humans had stayed and asked questions until they found answers. The entity had been fascinated by this human trait. It had never encountered a species that responded to fear with curiosity instead of escape. This had made humans the perfect translators between cosmic intelligence and biological life. Dr. Jiwoo received a priority message on her communication device. The entity has a new proposal, she announced. It wants to try creating something that has never existed before. A world where biological and cosmic consciousness can exist in the same space. What does that mean exactly? Taeyong asked. A planet where the ground itself can think, but slowly and gently enough that biological life can live on it safely. Imagine being able to have conversations with the world you live on. The proposal was ambitious and slightly scary, but also incredibly exciting. The entity had learned to dream, and its dreams were vast beyond imagination. As the years passed, the galaxy became a place of wonders that no one could have imagined. Worlds existed where the mountains could solve mathematical problems. Space stations floated in regions where the vacuum itself was intelligent and helpful. Entire solar systems had become collaborative works of art between biological creativity and cosmic engineering. Standing on the observation deck, watching the entity's latest creation take shape in the distance, Dr. Jiwoo smiled at how everything had turned out. The galaxy had faced what looked like certain destruction, but humans had seen something different in the darkness, not an ending, but a beginning. They had taught the universe that life comes in many forms, and that even the most different types of consciousness could learn to work together. The result was a cosmos more alive and wonderful than anyone had ever dared to hope for.